Welcome to our Monday, September 8th school board meeting. We will start with our agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. There are two amendments to the agenda under Roman numeral 7A1 and Roman numeral 7B1. Thank you.
Move for approval.
We have a motion from Dr. Malco, and I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We'll move right into our liaison committee updates. Dr. Malco.
Really nothing new. Foundation's web page, legislative committee. I will wait and talk with Dr. Baracco about that at another time, and we'll get together with a plan. Dyer Parks, I believe, meet next week. Thank you.
Okay, for the Dyer Redevelopment Committee north of Route 30 and east of Central Park, also east of Cedar Boulevard, they have approved and the process is moving forward. Ground will be broken for 60 townhomes, 60 townhome units in that area. Also, Dyer has purchased designated under Parks, 502 Main.
Great, and the only thing I have is go on sale on the 10th at 3 p.m. till the 24th. So get those tickets. And with that, our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again. Seek board approval for the minutes from our meeting on August 18th. Also seek approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures you received in your packets.
So moved.
Motion from Mrs. Talent. Second from Dr. Malco. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And we have no public comments regarding action items, so we're back to Dr. Baracco for our official school board business topics.
Thank you. And so my first item here is to share with the board that we are in the process of opening formal negotiations with our Teachers Association. Part of that process is to, at a public venue, open the floor to comments from any member of the public who wishes to provide input on what we should be negotiating in the collective bargaining agreement. It's important for folks to know that they have two additional opportunities to comment. At some point in the future, we will bring a tentative agreement to the board so that the board can say, we understand this is really close and we agree with what you've offered the teachers and that they're accepting. And then it still sits until the following board meeting when it will get formally approved. So at both of those opportunities, members of the public also have the opportunity to comment on the negotiations. So having said that, we need to open the floor at this time. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment or make a statement regarding the commencement of formal negotiations with the Lake Central Teachers Association. Okay, I don't see anybody stepping up. So again, this is not the only opportunity you have to comment. You can also comment at any public meeting, to be honest, before the end of the process, but most importantly, somewhere in the next 4 to 6 weeks, it will be on the agenda for tentative agreement and then for final approval by the board. Any comments from the board on that?
No.
Okay, and so my second item is just I provided the board a tentative timeline, and it's tentative every year because we need to have this done by November in order to avoid what they call impasse However, we also are going through insurance renewal. Insurance is a negotiable item. That's healthcare insurance. And so we are next week beginning that process for looking at what we're going to do with our healthcare program, if we have to make any adjustments. And so you have the timeline of how we hope it plays out, but rest assured, you will continue to hear from us on that timeline. Does the board have any questions about the timeline?
No,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. And I see our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Castaneda, is not in attendance. Who will
She
be
is at a
doing-
conference in Indianapolis
Right.
with Dr. Bracy, and so I will handle her items. You have her revised personnel packet at your workstation. I seek approval for those personnel recommendations at this time.
So moved.
We have a motion from Ms. Talent, and I will second that. Any discussion or questions?
I am curious, I've never seen somebody resign their purchase of plan period. Does that mean the schedule has been shrunk down, or how do you resign from a plan period?
Yeah, she's not needed.
Not needed, so, okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And the second item for Sarah, Mrs. Castaneda, is seek board approval for the professional leave request that you received last week in your packets.
Move for approval?
We have a motion from Dr. Malco,
Second.
second from Ms. Talent. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And who will be doing Director of Primary Education?
Thank you. Yep, Dr. Bracy is also at a conference. So on behalf of Dr. Bracy, I am seeking the board's approval for the professional leave request included in her board packet.
Move for approval?
We have a motion from Dr. Malco. I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I'm also seeking the board's approval for the field trip request also included in Dr. Bracy's board packet.
So moved.
Motion from Mrs. Talent. I will also second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And we'll just move right into your Director of Secondary Education, Ms. Schoeneman.
Thank you. I am seeking the board's approval for the professional leave request included in your packet.
Move for approval?
We have a motion from Dr. Malco,
Second.
second from Mrs. Talent. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And for my second item, I'm seeking the board's approval for the field trip request also included in the packet.
So moved.
Motion from Mrs. Talent. I will second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And Mrs. Gramala, I see that you're here, but you have nothing you're presenting, right? Okay, thank you. We'll go right into our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Thank you. For my first item, I'd like to seek your approval for the donations that were listed in your board packet.
Move for approval?
We have a motion from Dr. Malco.
I'll second.
All right, and we have a second from Mrs. Talent. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item is to seek your approval for the professional leave requests that were included in your board packet.
I will also move.
All right, we have a motion from Mrs. Talent. I will second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. And then my third item is I'm going to do our annual budget presentation. You do have a handout at your stations, but I am also going to be projecting onto the screen, so you can leave it up to you if you want to relocate or stay where you are.
you. You're welcome. Appreciate it.
As you know, I'm a pacer, I'm a walker, so I can't really just stand at the mic. Okay, so this is the annual budget presentation for 2026. First, we're going to go through the budget calendar, some of the things that have changed since last year, since we were here. We're going to go over the capital projects plan, the bus replacement plan, the estimate of funds to be raised, and then a comparison of how the 2026 budget compares to the 2025 budget in prior years, and then our recommendation to you. So here we are, September 8th. After this meeting, after my presentation, I will seek your approval to advertise the rates and the budget amounts. Hopefully you will do that. And then I will post that on our website and on the state's gateway system this week. Then at our next regularly scheduled board meeting on the 22nd, we will hold a required public hearing where the public can come and make a comment. And then at our first meeting in October is when the board will formally adopt the 2026 budget. So going into this year, we received our certified budget for calendar year 2025 on December 31st, 2024. Our net assessed value, which is the value of all of the properties in our school district, the net assessed value after deductions is just under $6.2 billion for our regular funds. Because of TIF districts that get factored into the referendum funds, those properties are valued at a total of about $6.8 billion. And that was about a 8.5% increase from 24 to 25. And the property values increased over $470 million, which is great. However, and we're going to talk about this even a little bit more, due to recent legislation, net assessed values are expected to potentially decrease for not only us, but for all taxing units across the state. So let's talk a little bit about the legislative session and the education fund, which is our tuition support that comes in to support all of our classroom expenditures. So this was the budget year, the long session, and in that 2-year cycle, the new state budget added approximately $960 million into the budget for the 2 years for K-12 education. Now, this is a little misleading because there used to be a separate grant, separate allocation for curricular materials in the tune of $160 million. That got wiped away and got rolled into this 960. And so you actually subtract it twice, and it's more of like a $600-some million increase. So if you recall, in the spring, the state got a very bad revenue forecast for the next 2 years to the tune of $2.4 billion in estimated lost revenue to the state. So there was fear that we were going to get flatlined or even cut in our funding. If you see, lots of state agencies got their budget slashed by 5-10%. Lots of public services at the state level actually got eliminated. So here we are, and for K-12, we actually got a 2% increase in not only the first year, but the second year of the biennium. So do we want more? Of course, but given the state, that the situation the state was in, I think people in my seat were kind of okay with the 2%. You'll see here that the foundation amount for the school funding increases 4.3% the first year, and then only 1.5% the second year. They kind of front-loaded it there. So the foundation is how much we get per student, and the same amount is for all school districts. As we've learned over the years, what we get per kid is different from our neighbors, which is different from every other school district. Everyone gets a different dollar amount per kid, but everyone starts at the same foundation amount. So we like that when the foundation increases because that helps everybody. Then the next piece of the funding formula is what's called the complexity index. And that is where it plays into your percentage of free and reduced students, and then you get additional dollars on top of that, on top of the foundation. So that amount is actually going down the first year, but then going back up slightly. Special ed grants increasing 3.1% and 4% in the 2-year period. Non-English speaking programs going up 8% approximately each year. CTE money going up 8 and 8.5% a year. So when we see, again, the state having a revenue shortfall, the fact that they were still able to protect K-12 education, we were grateful for that. So this chart shows how much the allocation in the state budget has changed over the last 8 years or so. You know, in 2020, we were about the state's budget in tuition support was about $7.3 billion. And this year it's 9.3. Next year it's going to be up to 9.6. Here on the right, we show what our funding per student is. Again, it was $69.45 last school year. It is going up to $72.45 this year. And a year from now, we'll see, you know, what the amount is for the 26-27 school year. So just like your household, you can't really figure out your expenses unless you realize what your revenue is going to be, right? And so our revenue in the education fund for tuition support is based on our ADM count, our student count. And so the October count in 2025 will be the basis for what our funding is here from July through December. They're using an estimated amount now, and then they'll take our actual count number, and then they'll adjust our funding amount in November and December to make us the right amount for this 6-month period. And then in February, we do the count again, and that determines your funding for January through June. So one of the challenges we have is I'm presenting you a calendar year 2026 budget that's based on a student count in February of 26 and in the fall of 26, and we haven't even done the count in the fall of 25 yet. So, welcome to our world. One of the things that we've been experiencing here at Lake Central is that for the last few years, our kindergarten class coming in has been about 200 kids less than our graduating class of seniors at the high school. So we've been facing a decrease in our enrollment just because the cohort coming through. Well, this year we've got some additional problems. We're starting to see, with the expansion of vouchers, we're seeing more and more kids who live in our boundaries who are attending parochial schools. That doesn't mean they came here and left. Those could be kindergartners or elementary kids who went straight there and they're using the vouchers. But if it wasn't for the vouchers, they'd be coming here. This year, we're actually looking, as of right now, to be down 300 kids from last year's count. Our kindergarten class now is less than 500. It's never been that low before. And so we have a little bit of concern. Now our current senior class is low, but that's one of the reasons why we're down 300 kids. This could be a trend. The vouchers aren't going away. You can think back and do some math in your head. Maybe next year's the COVID year, as it's kind of referred to, and you can figure that out. You know, maybe there's a incoming boost of kindergartners who may have been born in 21, 22. That's all I'm saying. 2021. So currently, we're getting $7,245 per kid. If we didn't lose any kids and we just held steady ADM, that would have been about $2 million more of revenue. But, you know, we know that we're going down. We know this trend. We're prepared for it. Often, even though we have less kids, since there's an increase in the amount of money we get per kid, often we still come out ahead and there's not that much of a difference. But this year, 300 kids is a lot of kids. And there was only 2% money added to the formula. So we're looking at being down about $1 million in our funding, in the school funding formula in our education fund for this school year. So we'll see how that trend is. Then when we talk about our expenditures in our education fund, again, what pays for classroom stuff, about 87% of our expenditures are payroll and benefits to our staff, and that's teachers and aides and counselors and bus drivers and everything that makes the place go. Health insurance continue to go up. And then property insurance, 15 to 16% just on our renewals we're dealing with. Utility bills, anybody get a higher NIPSCO bill here recently? Yeah, okay, so we did too. And we've been talking about the 17, 18% increase in NIPSCO rates. Okay, we're not getting more money for that just because there's a higher rate. We just have to deal with it. Always an emphasis on security, cybersecurity. School buses, I'm going to touch on later with our bus replacement plan, but the cost of buses has dramatically gone up in the last few years as well. These things down here, we need to have, but we can't control really those costs. You can control staff, but you can't control these things. So I want to touch a little bit on the big elephant in the room, the Senate Enrolled Act 1 that we've been dealing with for the last few months. Now Dr. Rocco's talked about it a lot at board meetings, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but I just at least want to give you a little more of an overview to you and the public. So we go back to the net assessed value of someone's property. It's you have your gross assessment, like what your house is worth, the first line on your tax bill, and then you get deductions. There's a standard deduction, there's a supplemental deduction, and then the tax rate is applied to that net after those deductions are taken down. Well, Senate Enrolled Act 1 changes the formula over the next 6 years of how those deductions are going to be applied. And because of that, the net AVs, the taxable amount, is going to be decreasing for property owners. That could result in then lower net assessed values for the governmental units like us. And when the assessed value goes down and you need to raise the same amount of money, then that means the tax rate goes up. And when the tax rate goes up, that means that more people are going to hit the tax cap, and that's less revenue to local governments like us in the cities and towns. So this is a quick summary of what the SEA 1 is doing to the standard deduction over the next 6 years and how it's shifting to the supplemental deduction. So currently, you get $48,000 off the top, and then you get another 37.5% off. And then you can see that the standard deduction is being weeded away and the supplemental deduction is going up. So in 6 years from now, people are going to get 2/3 off of their tax bill. So if you have a $300,000 home, will only be taxed at $100,000. The second big piece, this is really hurting us, of SEA 1 is this additional homestead credit. So after your tax bills is going to be calculated, everyone's going to get a 10% discount off of that, or $300, the lesser of the two. So it all depends how it plays out. That's a discount off your tax bill. In essence, it's calculated what you need to pay in order to support local government, but then it's on sale, and the homeowner pays less, but no one makes up that revenue. So instead of the homeowner paying it, then it's short. And we are going to be short. We have a lot of properties in our district. We have a lot of homeowners. You know, it adds up, $300 here, $260 here. You add up tens and thousands of people, and you have a loss. And this is what the predicament that we are now going to be in. So this next chart shows the green line is the gross assessed value of properties in our school district. Again, like the top line of everyone's home values. And it's been pretty steady, and this goes all the way out to 2035 as a projection what those gross values would be. And then the blue line represents, if the law hadn't changed, what the net is after deductions. And you can see it pretty much follows the same path. Well, after the law changed, those net assessed values are expected to go down. And so when you're applying a referendum rate to this number instead of that number, you're going to get less money. So this chart shows what our revenue, our property tax revenue, was expected to be in our operations fund, which is transportation and capital projects and utilities and security. This is what our revenue would have steadily projected to be with growth in the assessed values. With the new law, this is what our revenue is anticipated to be. And you can see how this gap continues to grow and continues to grow to the tune of $2 million shortfall next year, an additional $4 million the following year, and by the time we get to 2031, it's $7 million less than what we would have gotten if the law hadn't changed. And in total, that's about $45 million over the 8 years. So what do we need to do in order to offset this? You can only, like I said, we talked earlier, can't change the NIPSCO bills, got to keep the lights on. I still got to buy school buses. I got to still have insurance. So in summary, estimates are it's about a $244 million revenue decrease to public schools across the state over the next 3 years. And that's because homeowners are going to be paying less with the new credit. The change in the formula changes people's AVs, which means they're going to hit the tax cap, which means that's less money for local government. And as I said, if you have a voter-approved referendum, that is at a set rate. And if that rate is being applied to a lower number, it's going to generate less revenue. For Lake Central, because that's what we're concerned about, as I said, it's about a $45 million revenue decrease over the next 8 years. So what are we going to do about that? So we are seeking to modify our referendum rate in order to make up for this shortfall and then bring in the same amount of dollars so we can continue offering the same programs that we have, keep the security, keep the nurses, keep the supporting counselors, not cut extracurricular activities in order to maintain the great things that our staff and things are doing here. The good news is that because of these credits, even with us seeking a higher rate, most homeowners are still going to see a reduced tax bill in 2026. So we're just looking to get some of their revenue back, so when your tax money is going for services, we want to just maintain those services. So this chart kind of shows the estimated loss, what we're seeing here in 2025 for tax caps, and then what the Department of Local Government Finance, the DLGF, is expecting and estimating our losses to be next year in 2026 based on the credits and the tax cap hits. And you can see we've always had a low amount of circuit breaker tax cap impact here, but we're jumping up about $2 million. And that goes back to that previous slide a few ago about loss of $2 million. And you can look at some of our peers in Lake and Porter County. Some have more of an impact than others. Everyone's geographic makeup is different. So if you're someone who's already been at the cap, you probably aren't going to get too many more people at the cap. If you are a large footprint like us and have a lot of property owners, you're going to have a lot of people with the homestead credits. So of our $2 million loss, about $1.6 million of that is that tax credit of the $300 or the 10%. About $400,000 of it are people hitting the tax cap. So that's really going to hurt us this year because we have a lot of property owners. We're a bedroom community, right? And we've got a big footprint. So you can look at the individual schools and what their impact is going to be. You know, as I said, we've been fortunate not to, because of our high assessed value, haven't had too many tax caps. Some of our peers have been dealing with this for a long time and for years, but they're also going to see a jump here from 1 year to the next. So this is a chart that I put in here each year. Again, this is the actual 2025 tax credit impacts. This is our $135,000 from there, okay? And, you know, $139,000, that's a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, it's only about 0.25% of our entire budget. So we've been able to manage that. So the levy is what the state determines through the formula of what you need to operate your schools, this is how much you should be asking your taxpayer for, this is the amount that's coming off the top. So you got these school districts who are on up here, they're losing 20, 30, 40% of the money that they should theoretically be getting if there were no tax caps in place. This is just a chart or a graph of the same information, and you can see that we're currently down here. I didn't want to base this on estimates. Next year at this time, we'll see how this chart changes with the 2026 information with things really jumping. All right, that was kind of the bad news, but we're dealing with it, right? And that's what we do. So, any questions up until that point?
I mean, really, someplace like Gary, how will they survive?
It's tough. The only thing I'll say about Gary's survival is their change, and this, I have data that goes back multiple years, they've been so high that this change isn't really that much. I don't want to say it's not as their change is only 10% next year. They've been dealing with this for a long time. And so it's an unfortunate situation there. We're going to see, we're focusing here on Lake and Porter counties, but I think rural Indiana is actually going to be seeing some more things because you have, currently homeowners in Indiana are capped at the 1%, and then you have farmland and rental property that's capped at 2%. They've never had those deductions like the homeowner's deduction before. They've just been pretty much paying full price on their farmland. Well, this Senate and Roll Act that I didn't even talk about, they start getting deductions themselves for the farmland, which is going to mean the farmers are going to pay less, which means those rural communities are going to be getting less revenue. So here in St. John Township, we don't have too many farms. It's not as applicable to our discussion here. So we'll see what happens. Selfishly, I'm just really concerned. I focus on Lake Central. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about our capital projects plan. As part of the budget process, we are required to do a 3-year budget plan for capital improvements at our buildings. The key word here is plan. You never know what's going to happen. You can get a chiller that goes down. You can have a boiler break. You can have a roof leak. But it's a plan of things that we like to do. Sometimes you'll see things on here for multiple years, and you're like, geez, Rob, aren't you guys ever going to do that? Well, sometimes money comes into play, but sometimes it's like, hey, we think that gym floor is going to need to be replaced, but actually it's been holding up pretty good. We can push that down the road a little bit more. So I'll go through these. Here, the first page are things that we're looking to potentially do in 2026. We always put an allocation out for asphalt repairs, patching up potholes and concrete sidewalks and miscellaneous roof repairs. We always put money in for that. We give our schools an allocation to replace desks and chairs whenever they need to. Here at the high school, looking to do some bathroom sink replacements here in the freshman center that weren't part of the new construction 10, 12 years ago at this point. At Kaler, we have some fire alarm devices that are starting to get old, and Bill wants to replace those before they start getting defective. We'll be a little proactive on that. We talked about replacing the box sign there. At Grimmer, looking to continue the parking lot paving, and you'll see that it'll be in conjunction with Watson, since it's the same, in essence, the same lot. Then we're looking at painting the gym at not only at Holman, but at Coling and Pfeiffer. Maybe a new sign at Holman they've been talking about. We did some roof replacements at Holman this year, and I'm looking to do some more roof replacements at Holman. Our buildings are so big, you just can't, it's not like your house where you do your whole roof at one time. You do it in sections. And so Bill's office, they keep track of the age of all of our roofs, all the sections of our roofs, and make sure that we're proactive in replacing them ongoing each year, the ones that are going to need them. Replace RTUs, those are rooftop air conditioning units, HVAC at Coling. Some more roof replacements at Pifer. Looking to do some bathroom floor work at Pifer. Again, the gym floor there might need to be replaced here soon too. For 27 and 28, again, some of the basic things about the general repairs. Soffit work at Grimmer, and then continuing with the carpet replacement at Kaler. The gym floor and bleachers, that's one of those things that we've had on here for a while. It seems like we're going to need to replace those, and we're going to do that. When we do it, we'll do it both at the same time. But that floor has been holding up. There was some repair work that was done years ago, and it's actually holding on pretty well. So we think we can wait for a while on that one. Do some parking lot paving at Clark, carpet replacements at Holman, maybe painting the gym at Watson, and then into 28, carpet replacements there. Again, with not knowing what our funding is going to be, we don't want to put too much further down the road. We look really more of our immediate things that are, safety issues, potential safety issues. The other piece that we have, we look forward to are part of the capital projects plan is not necessarily a project themselves, but what type of assets or pieces of equipment are we looking to purchase. And we've done a lot of like the snow brush cart things that the custodians use to brush out. We've replaced pretty much all of those in the last few years. We've got a lot of new scrubbers for the cafeterias, the ride-along scrubbers. So this list used to be a lot longer, but we've knocked out a lot of stuff. They're looking to purchase a snowplow dump truck with the spreader on it. The one we have is being, I don't want to say band-aided, but it's starting to rust out, and we can use something a lot more efficient. And then same thing with a new lawn maintenance trailer, a new trailer to haul the tractors, there's the mowers on when they go from school to school.
So Rob, when you identify that as a new lawn trailer, are you talking brand new or just a replacement?
It would replace the current one that they use. Yes. I guess it could be a good used one. I let Bill and his department, look at that. Yep. Okay, so then we have required to have a 5-year bus replacement plan. This is kind of silly because we're required, buses generally last like 12 years. And for those who've been on the board a while, this used to be a 12-column plan, and then they shortened it to 5 years. But they still require you to list all your buses that you're going to replace over the 12 years. So I mentioned earlier about the cost of buses increasing. So we just got quotes for next year's purchase. So when you order a bus, it takes like 9-10 months to get them. We just got the quotes for buses for next year, and for a traditional yellow full-size 72-passenger bus, they're coming in at like $159,000 each. You can add about $10,000 to that for a special needs bus with a lift. It's smaller, but it's got special mechanics on there. I was looking back 4 years ago, the cost of a new bus was about $119,000. So it's gone up 34% from 120, let's call it, to 160 in just 4 years. And again, there's nothing we can do about that. We don't set the prices. So it puts a strain on sometimes. So what does the school district do? It's like, well, maybe instead of replacing 8, we can only afford to replace 7 or 6. We are fortunate that we've got a very good mechanic crew at the transportation barn that keeps our buses running in good shape. We got great kids who aren't tearing the seats up. So our buses last a while. And we don't get rid of buses just because 10 years, 12 years, let's go. Some of these buses, 2011s. Now these are smaller buses, but just a hats off to our transportation department for keeping things going. And when we look to trade in do trade-ins, we don't just take the oldest 4 or 5. It's the ones that are the ones that are giving us a little more mechanical problems. It could have maybe more mileage on it, but if it's still running good, we're not going to get rid of it just to get rid of it. So again, this is just a list of kind of where we're projecting, seeing what the cost might be over the next few years for those buses, and then you can see the cost just keeps going up and up. So now let's just talk about the budget amounts. So this is a state form that doesn't look like this anymore. This is called the Form 4B, but like I said, this doesn't look like this anymore. This is an old version of that form, but I like this version better because I think it's easier to understand. And this is referred to as the 16-line statement. Why is it called the 16-line statement? Is because there's 16 lines, and that's pretty much just where it comes from. But when you're working the budget, it's really an 18-month snapshot of the school district. It's the current 6 months from July through December, plus next year's 12 months. So on this, it's how much are you going to need next year in each of your funds? How much do you expect to still spend this 6-month period? So then here's your total, line 5 is your total expenditures for the next 18 months. Then it's like, well, all right, well, how much cash do you have on hand already? How much is in your bank account? You're going to be getting some tax settlement money in December. Okay, that's going to be coming in. And then you got some miscellaneous revenue, grants, other things coming in for not only this 6-month period, but then the following 12-month period. And you need a cash on hand because you can't just be at zero, so you got to have money in a good cash balance. So once you take all that into consideration, how much do we need to raise from the taxpayer, line 16, in order to support the budget and support the needs of the school? So on the next slide or two, you're going to see my recommendation for the education fund at $73.5 million is how the math works. That we would be okay with that. Operations fund of $27 million. We are at $26 million this year, but as we said, we got bus costs going up, utility bills going up, property insurance bills going up. So probably going to need a higher budget amount there. Our referendum operating fund, increased allocation, or excuse me, maintaining that same budget there for our expenditures. Our other two funds, our debt funds, we're looking at a budget of $9,317,131 for debt service. The debt is like your mortgage. I know exactly what my payments are going to be in 2026. This is the exact amount to the dollar of what is going to be for our loans, for our lease rental payments. So that amount will get approved, and that one's very straightforward. And then we have a separate fund for our referendum debt for this building and for Protzman. Again, it's the debt payments that are due here in 2026. Over time, this debt fund is going to get smaller and smaller because when we did the bonds and the debt for the referendum fund, we structured it so over time, more money was coming here and less money was coming here. So this was over $10 million last year. We'll see on the next slide, I think. And then this is going to increase probably a couple $100,000 each year. But the two added together is actually less than before. So that's a good thing. So here's a budget comparison to give you some perspective. So for 2025 and 26, looking to keep the same amount for the education fund. As I mentioned, increasing the operations fund by $1 million, keeping the referendum fund the same, debt service going down, and a slight increase in our referendum debt based on the assessed value. So last year at this time, we advertised a rate of 86.87, and we're looking to advertise slightly higher at 90.55. Now remember, this includes our increase that we're seeking from our taxpayers with our referendum of going from 17 to 26. So that's 9 cents, and overall, we're still only looking up to go 4 and change. So, and that's because, debt coming off and debt getting lower. So this slide kind of gives a little brief history of how our tax rates have been. We advertise high in the sense that we want they're only going to get approved, you can't get any more than what you ask for, but it's always, the math can come in less. So you'll always see that the advertised rate is always higher than the certified rate. So here we go. And you can see the comparisons to what we advertised in 24, 25, and a slight increase there in 26, and how the actual certified amount that comes out in December and how it compares. This is just another summary of that, just in a colorful form. And you can see in the red line how our assessed value has increased every year steadily, but we've maintained a very level tax rate for our community and for our taxpayers, and we're very proud of that. We'll see what happens next year. So then, my recommendation to the board and to the public is to maintain these amounts. Education fund, $73.5 million. Operations fund at $27 million. Referendum operating fund at $14. Debt service, $9,317,131. And the referendum debt, $12,886,500. As I mentioned before, upon your approval, I will post this on our website, on the state's Gateway website. We'll have a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting, and then our first meeting in October, we would have the budget adoption. This is a sample of what the notice looks like on the Gateway website. It indicates meeting place, those dates I just mentioned, what our estimated tax cap loss is going to be. That's the $2 million there. And this is a summary then of those budget estimates for the various funds and the amounts to be raised. This would be the levy. So if someone goes on the Gateway site, that's what they will see. So, any questions?
So Robert, you mentioned the high school and Protsman on the debt.
Yes.
Where does Village come in at?
So the Protsman in high school was the referendum we sought for from the public. It was a ballot question back in 2011 about, do you approve the $160 million for the project? It's its own separate fund because it's calculated differently, because when it's a voter-approved referendum project or operating referendum, that's when you get to use all the money that's in the TIF district and all those properties. So that's $6.8 billion as compared to the $6.3 billion. So that's why they're two separate funds. It's separated out. Bibbage, we did what's called a GEO bond, a general obligation bond, and that is being paid off over the next few years to pay for that. So that's just part of the regular, that's part of the regular debt fund. Yep. That also is our common school loans that we do each year for technology. We have some old building projects that we're still paying on. So we have some debt that's rolling off, which is good, so. Sure.
And I do have one other question. I know that we have talked, or maybe I have talked repeatedly about the very old baseball scoreboard out there, but I didn't see it on the capital projects, and I thought it was going to be happening through capital projects. Or maybe
I don't know what the status of that discussion is, since that field's barely used. So I don't know what
That's a minimal cost.
yeah.
So you were just going to do it in the summer, fall, if you're on staff, right? Right. Okay. So
Yep.
that's why it's not here. All right.
Yep.
Just want to make sure we didn't forget it.
Rob, can you explain how the old projects used to automatically be under the cap prior to 2010, and why the high school Protsman, as a large project, went outside the cap? And because I think you explained how that first debt is dropping off as the other thing gets filled in. But
So, yeah, we had prior to my time, 2010, Larry's time as superintendent, we had a lot of building projects. We built Clark. We did some expansions on other or renovations at Holman and Bibbage and Pfeiffer. I'm just trying to think of all the things that are on my debt schedule. And so in those realms, we would do, just like we did for Bibbage, you would do a GO bond, or you would get the building corporation involved and do a lease rental with them, and they would sell the bonds, and then you're doing a lease with the building corp. But then the laws changed, and they said, well, if you're going to be doing this project over X amount of dollars, and that threshold changes each year, then you need to go to your taxpayers and get their approval first before you schools just go out and build all these Taj Mahals, right? And so that is why we had to go to the taxpayers for the high school and the Protzman project. The benefit of that is, though, yes, it was a lot of work, but as it's in that separate fund, the cost for that debt, and when it's an approved referendum, that doesn't get factored into the tax caps anymore, because they're saying, hey, your voters approved that, we're not going to shortchange you. So it's a good mechanism in order to have, that's why our tax cap, even though we have that, this was a big project, but we're not currently getting hit by the circuit breaker because that was done through the referendum piece. Is that what you're kind of getting at? So it all kind of goes back to, well, if you wouldn't have done that expansion at Bibbage, or if you wouldn't have built that high school, you'd have more money for this. Well, that's not how it works. We get the debt comes in, and I pay the bank. We can't use that money for other stuff. If the voters wouldn't approve that, or if the school board doesn't approve a GO bond to do the work, then we don't have that money in the first place. So that money is raised for a specific purpose annually to make my debt payments. So that money comes in and it goes out literally within a week or two. So,
Do they still have the holding corporations? Do those still occur?
They do. So we still have the building corporation associated with us. It's made up of 5 community members. It's its own legal entity. And when you have a larger project, there's legal reasons why the reason why building corporations are in place is because there's some statute that says there's a limit on how much debt a school district can have. It's like 2% of your assessed value or something. So decades ago, literally decades ago before me, some smart lawyers said, hey, well, it's not like we're just building a fire station or we're building a town hall. Schools are big, and they have a lot of them. We got to find out a way to get around this. So what was created, and it's in statute, is you have this separate legal entity who, like, for example, for this project, the building corporation sold the $160 million worth of bonds. Then we have a lease rental agreement with them that we pay them. They turn around and pay the bondholders. When it's the lease rental agreement, that doesn't go against our debt limitation. So it's a workaround. It seems kind of weird, but it's in Indiana code about this is the way to do it. So yes, it's still around. We haven't utilized the building corp to initiate and sell bonds in a while. Besides this project for the high school, we did a lot of bond refunding in the mid-teens when interest rates were so low. And it was like, hey, we can refinance these and save our taxpayers a lot of money. So we would have building corporation meetings, and they would have to go through, and we have to redo the paperwork. But I still, twice a year, I pay the building corp through the bank, and then they turn around. But for them to be needed on a basis of, hey, we want to issue more debt, we haven't had that in a long time. But we still meet with them regularly, about once a year. They like to hear what's going on with us, and we like to meet with them too. Yes, they all live here in the Tri-Town. Yep. So. Yep. Any other questions? All right, I've taken up a lot of your time. So thank you. When you get back to your seats, I will seek board approval then to advertise what we talked about.
Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Okay, so with that, I seek the board's permission to advertise the 2026 budget, the capital projects plan, and the bus replacement plan as discussed for the last 40 minutes.
Move for approval.
We have a motion from Dr. Malco, and I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
And we have no public comments, so we'll move right into board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Ms. Talent?
Thank you. I just would want to say that it's very inspiring and it's very good that our community and schools work together. For example, these newsletters that come out to our parents, specifically at Kaler and at Protzman and at Bibbich, all contain information about the open house that's going to be at the fire department in Dyer. And so it's nice to see the community organizations work with the schools, and so those are well attended by our students. It's also good to see that we have professional development for our AP courses. That is really great, so thank you for thinking about that, and also the professional development for our nurses. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Malco?
No, I was really curious, but Dr. Bracey's not here tonight. I'd like to know more about the Northwest Indiana Elementary Directors Conference that they hosted. So maybe we could put that on the agenda for next time and get some information on that. That'd be great. That's all. Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you, Mr. James, for the budget presentation. I know it's a lot of work, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, for sure.
With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Varacco for board calendar and future activities.
Thank you. Our next meeting is here on Monday, September 22nd. That's all I have for tonight.
All right, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Move for approval.
And I will second that. We are adjourned.